Welcome to the very first episode of the Sports Roundup. I'm your host, Brandon Glogau, and today we are joined by Andrew Turner. Andrew Turner, a former player in the Miami Marlins organization, a former LIU Brooklyn Blackbird, and most importantly, a Northeast Conference champion. Andrew, how you doing?
Good. What's going on, Brandon? Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. Thank you for coming on. So I mentioned before, former player in the Miami Marlins organization. You were really good of a player that you weren't only drafted once, you were drafted twice by them. Talk about your first experience when they called your name. Where were you? Who were you with? What was going on?
Yeah, so it was kind of a crazy story. It all happened kind of fast. My sophomore year and really my freshman year at LIU, I played a little bit, but not a whole lot. So I wasn't really on anyone's draft radar as a junior coming in. I started my junior year at third base, obviously a little bit because of default. We had a very small roster size and kind of got thrown in the mix like a lot of other guys and had to kind of figure it out. Had a slow start to the year, got a little bit better as the season went on and started to pick it up towards the end of the year. But really no communication with scouts whatsoever. Then end of April rolls around, right around Easter weekend, we're playing at Bryant up in Rhode Island. Facing James Karinchak, who was the NEC pitcher of the year before, rookie of the year before that. He's in the big leagues now with the Indians. Very good arm. And there were about 30 scouts there that day. Happened to put a good swing on a ball and hit a home run. I was just trying to win the game, nothing crazy, didn't think anything of it. On Sunday, the Marlins scout came up to me before the game and said he was there to see me that day, which was very new to me. Draft wasn't really on my radar at all before that point. And then hit another home run that day. Wind was blowing out a little bit, got some help and snuck one out over the fence on that day as well. So it was a good weekend in front of that guy, and only about 2 or 3 weeks left in the season after that. So he gave me a call that week. The progress kind of got sped up a little bit, the process. And next thing you know, he invited me to the Marlins workout down in Miami at the stadium, which was a week after the season. So really only 3 or 4 weeks after that trip to Bryant. And I went to the workout, did pretty well, did my thing. Nothing crazy, left thinking oh, that was cool. Maybe I'm on their radar for next year now. They know who I am. I'm in the system. So that summer I went up to the Cape Cod League on a temporary contract, 2 or 3 week contract. And the draft was the same day as opening day in the Cape Cod League. So I'm getting ready for my first game up there. I'm with the host family, having breakfast, having lunch. The draft's about to start. Watched the first. So this was day 3 of the draft. I'm sorry. The first 2 days had come and gone. I knew I wasn't going to go on one of those 2 days. Day 3 of the draft, I'm following throughout the day my host family. This is rounds 10 to 40. If I had a shot at getting drafted, it was going to be today. Nothing had happened all day. We go to the field. We're at our home field, taking in and out, batting practice, going through some last minute bunt coverage stuff. Check my phone afterwards, still nothing. We went to the Bourne Braves. So we jump on a bus. We drive about 30 minutes to Bourne. The whole way on the bus, I'm looking at the tracker, looking at the Twitter about the draft and who's getting picked. And I think by the time we showed up to the field, we were at the 35th or 36th round. And I hadn't heard from anybody. Hadn't heard from the scout. No one had texted me, obviously. So I was like, you know what? It was cool. I followed it. I gave it a good run. Maybe next year. And then I'm out at third base. Opening game had started. It was opening night. A lot of fans, a lot of fun. I'm just locked into the game at this point. Draft's kind of off my mind. And we're in the 3rd inning, I think. And a bunch of my teammates, I'm at third base and we're in the first base dugout. So I can see my dugout. A bunch of my teammates in the dugout started waving their arms and screaming and yelling. And at that point, I was confused because I figured the draft was probably over by that point. But I got back in the dugout and they all started kind of jumping a little on me and stuff and patting me on the back. And I had been drafted in the 40th round, the last round, in the middle of my game. And it was really cool. It was pretty emotional. So I took a minute, whatever. And I had to finish the game, obviously. My dad had driven up to watch opening day in the Cape Cod League, and he knew I might get drafted that day. So it was a special day for a couple of reasons. He was there with my younger brother. So after the game, big hug with him, emotional. And so it was really cool that they were there. And it was kind of funny how it happened because I found out through my teammates kind of getting excited in the dugout. So that was kind of how I found out. That was the day. And yeah, it was exciting for sure the first time it happened.
So now you go on and actually turn down their offer and you come back for your senior year at LIU. And for you personally, must have really meant a lot because you became a NEC champion that year. So how rewarding was that to turn it down to become a champion, and what led you to actually do that?
Yeah, so you're an LIU Brooklyn alum, and a lot of people feel a lot of pride with their schools. Anybody who's gone to college, but as well as I do, there's something like different about LIU Brooklyn. It's such a small community. There's so much history. There's so much pride, and it was going to be really hard to walk away from that anyway. But LIU baseball, for anybody who's not familiar with the history, we had never won an NEC championship. The last championship of any kind was 1972, and the last championship of any kind was 1992. Last regional appearance was 1972. So it had been 25, 26 years since we won anything. Almost 50 years, just short of 50 years since we'd been on the national stage. So my first years at LIU were very, very tough. We lost a lot of games. And my junior year, we had a very, very good year. We were this close. We had a new coach in Perillo, an LIU alumni, Coach Cardi, Coach Ziz. And you could just feel in my junior year, even though we didn't make the tournament, we missed by one game, you could just feel that we completely flipped the script at LIU as far as baseball is concerned. Like, it was back to where it was supposed to be. The culture was back where it should have been. And we were right there. And I was very close to Perillo, so I was very aware of the recruiting class that was coming in. They were bringing in 13 junior college guys. So it wasn't like we were bringing in a bunch of freshmen who were a couple years away. They were bringing in pieces to win now, to build around me, Piote, Baylor LaPointe, Smith, Krieger, Mercadante, the guys who had already been there. And they went into win now mode. And it was, I knew that we were going to win. I just knew we were going to win. With what we had been through, with how well we played our junior year with a short bench, how the culture had changed, I knew my senior year we were going to win. And to leave LIU at all would be hard. It's still hard to this day, but to leave with unfinished business would have just been too hard. Like, me and Dom and Baylor had been there for 3 years together. We'd gone through so much. We were in the last place in the NEC for freshman year, sophomore year, had been embarrassed, kicked to the curb, laughing stock of the NEC. And we had been through everything together. And our junior year, we turned that around, and to bail on those guys after all we had been through and all we had started to build, it wouldn't have felt right. Like, I never played baseball for, obviously I always want to get drafted. You want to play the highest level, but I played because I love to win. I played because I love my teammates, and that kind of camaraderie is what you seek in baseball. And we had it. And I wanted to see that through. And it just wouldn't have felt right. So I was actually in the Cape Cod for those 2 weeks. And then when my temporary contract expired, I went to play in the NECBL. I was living with Mike Krieger, the all-time saves leader at LIU, and his family. And we drove to the field every day and home, while I was kind of in the process of making my decision and waiting to hear back from the Marlins. And we had long talks every single day, and he understood what I was thinking. I bounced a lot of ideas off of him, and it was scary. I was a 40th round pick. There's no guarantee you get drafted again the next year. It's not like you're a first round pick and you'll get drafted again. So you have a bad year, you get hurt, you're out of there. So it was scary, and I'm very thankful for him and those car rides where I was able to talk and sort things out with him. But ultimately, and like, I just couldn't leave those guys. I knew what was going to happen at LIU. I loved LIU. A lot of really awesome people, like Margaret Alamo, Richard James, people who had been in my corner for 3 years and done so much for the baseball program after those first couple of really down years. You wanted to give back to them everything that they had given to you, and just leaving. To me, I know maybe it wouldn't have looked that way. It would have felt selfish to me. Like, I wanted to stay there and finish what I started for the people who helped us and with the people who I'd been with for so long.
You mentioned Dan Perillo, John Cisnewski. I'm just mentioning those two in particular first. And, you actually could throw in Anthony Capo in your senior year. He was also a GA also. How did having all those alumni coaches in Perillo, Cisnewski, and Capo help impact your performance on the field, and also just help building a winning culture at LIU?
I give them all the credit. I learned more from those coaches in that first year and my second year than my entire life playing baseball. It's not even from a baseball standpoint. They taught me a lot about baseball. I was a 250 hitter when Perillo got there. My batting average went up like 90 points in 1 year just from working with Perillo on the mental side of baseball. And Coach Cisnewski helped me with fielding, and I learned a lot baseball wise. But there's one thing I learned from that coaching staff. It is that culture wins. It is that family wins. If you want to do anything in life with a group of people, it needs to be, and you want to have success, there needs to be love, there needs to be mutual respect, and there needs to be a bond that is just unbreakable. And so many people in college baseball and sports in general, the business world, anybody who leads organizations, they think like talent wins, like get the most talent, get the smartest people. But at the end of the day, if you don't love each other, if you're not a tight-knit group, when adversity hits, you fall apart. And that Perillo just built a group of people and a culture of just people that loved each other so much and would do anything for each other. And when you're in that environment, it forces you to play better. You don't want to take a day off because you love your brother so much. You know how much they're investing. So you want to elevate your game for them. You want to get the job done, not just for yourself anymore, but for your 40 brothers in the dugout. Like that motivation is what creates success. That championship season, what a lot of people don't realize is we also set the record for most players on an LIU baseball team to also be all conference. And I attribute that to the culture that we built. We were not even close to being the most talented team in the NEC, but we were the tightest and we were the strongest culture, in my opinion. And when you have that, it just raises the play of everybody in the locker room and in the dugout. Because when you play baseball, you know how it is. Like when you're on a team, when you're hitting and you're up there alone, you can feel if you have your team support or not in the dugout. When you're out on the mound, you can tell if the 8 guys behind you love you and are supporting you. And when you feel like there's tension or you don't have their support, you're on an island. And no matter how good you are, it's impossible to play well in the sport of baseball if your team is not supporting you, if there's bad team chemistry, and if you're losing. So I talk to Perillo to this day still about that. And it's unbelievable he was able to create in just 1 year, my junior year, and that carried over to my senior year. And when it got going, man, it was pretty unstoppable what he built there.
You talk about how these guys helped you improve on your hitting and your defense, and how everything's went up since these guys came in. And you talked about how you were talking with Mike Krieger about how you were just scared about the possibility that you may not get drafted again, so you went in the 40th round. Coming back for your senior year, how do you think that boosted your chances of getting drafted for a second time?
Yeah, so it definitely helped. I only went up 1 round. I got drafted in the 39th round, so I don't want to say like it boosted me too much, but the biggest thing was people at least knew who I was now. In the fall when we had a pro day at LIU every year in the fall where scouts would come, we'd do a pro style workout. And for the first time in my career, like scouts were coming up to me at the event and like kind of talking to me. So I really felt like people knew who I was. That was the biggest difference. And in the fall, I got a lot of questionnaires from other organizations because I was in the system. They knew I had been drafted, so they were following up on me. So, I guess I don't know how much it helped my stock per se, because I only went up a round, but I was definitely, I guess, on more people's radar, which I could tell. And it allowed me to play loose because I knew a lot of people knew about me. I knew some hard work had got me into the system. So I was comfortable playing every day, knowing that people were watching and I didn't have to do too much. I just keep doing what I'm doing and people are here and people know about me now because of what happened last year. So it was never really a main focus though. Like, to be honest, I came back to win a championship, and obviously I want to get drafted again, but I didn't want that to take up any of my time, any of my effort, any of my energy. I just put it all in on winning a championship, and I knew that the rest would just take care of itself.
When you get drafted in the minors, it's a long process to get to the main goal, which is the majors. And with that, it could also be some personal nerves, whether you show it or not. Your first day reporting to your new team, was there a veteran player that's maybe been in the minors for a while, or a coach that just kind of took you around to introduce you to some of the guys that have been there on your first day, or did you do that on your own?
Yeah, so they did a really good job, the Marlins, of kind of implementing us. So the way it works is we all stay in the same hotel, all the first year guys. They pick you up from the airport, like some of the scouts or some of the interns in the front office, and they put you all in the hotel. And then when you get there, they called it draft camp. For 3 days, you're there from like 8 a.m. to like 4 at night, and you learn all the Marlins systems, the signs, the bunt plays, the double cuts, the rundowns. They go over everything. So because the season's already going on at that point. The season starts in April and the draft's in June. So we're getting there, and you're either going to go to rookie ball, single A, maybe high A, and they're going to send you out into the organization. So they need to make sure you're on the same page as everybody else. So they spend about 3 days going over all the plays, you learn the playbook and everything, and you hit and get to know the coordinators and the coaches. They're all there. The main guys who run the minor leagues. And so you build a quick relationship with them. They kind of know what you're about. So when you get sent out, they kind of know what you're working on, what your focus is and stuff like that. But when you come in, since it's an empty clubhouse in spring training, the whole organization is in the same clubhouse. When we came in June, we used that same clubhouse, but everybody's off playing at the affiliates. So it was just the draft guys, the guys who had signed, and we're all in the same locker room together. So we kind of really just had to rely on each other. Like I had guys on my team. That was one of the coolest parts, is from all over the country. I had teammates from Texas A&M, Gonzaga, Florida State. Like we had every coast covered, everything in between, Mississippi, Minnesota. It was just really, really cool meeting guys from all over the parts of the country and the world, and at that same time, the international signing guys come up from the DSL and the Dominican facility. So those guys from Cuba, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, the DR, and we're all kind of just throwing this locker room together, figuring it out. And it's kind of like being a freshman in college again, like you and your friends closest to you, nobody has any idea what's going on. So you kind of get through it together. So I have a lot of really, really good friends from those days. When I first got to the Marlins, guys I latched onto, developed really good relationships with. And then the coaches there were great as well. So the GCL staff pretty much ran that camp. Some of the head Marlins coordinators were there, like the hitting coordinator, the infield coordinator for the entire minor leagues. They're there getting you matriculated on their verbiage, their mechanical cues, and what they teach. So those coaches were great. Those coaches, it's unbelievable to this day. I still think about it all the time, how much they know about baseball. Just those guys who have been around 30, 40 years in professional Major League Baseball, the amount of attention to detail when they teach the game, talk about the game. It's, when you're 22 and you're playing at the Division I level, you think you know everything. You get the pro ball and you realize quickly that you don't know anything. And I was trying to take notes, absorb as much information as I could from those coaches in 3 days, and then every day after that. So developed some really good relationships with those coaches, and I still talk to some of them almost every day, to be honest. And when we do stuff here at Wagner and I'm coaching, I ask them for their notes, give them my notes, to ask them to critique it. And so some really good relationships for sure out of those first couple of weeks and the people I met.
How did the pandemic and with them canceling the minor league season affect you?
Yeah, so fast forward, that was 2018 at draft. I played the 2019 season, and then I trained that whole offseason, 2019 to 2020. And I got released in about February, about a few weeks before I was supposed to report for spring training in 2020. I got released. I put in the whole offseason of work. I wasn't quite ready to hang it up yet. Just talking to some other affiliates, some scouts with some other MLB teams, just trying to work something out to maybe jump into spring training camp and get back on a roster for the full year. I had a couple offers from independent ball teams, like Atlantic League, Frontier League, stuff like that was in the works. And I had a couple offers. So I was sorting through that. I had that as a plan B if the affiliated ball didn't work out. And then right in the midst of that is when COVID kind of kicked in. So nothing had really happened yet in my career. COVID set in early March, and they kind of slowed everything down. And then eventually towards mid-March, they decided to cancel minor leagues for the entire year. Indie ball ended up picking up by like the middle to the end of the summer in some makeshift kind of shell of itself. But so I kept training, I kept kind of working out, but everything was on pause and on hold. And kind of in that time, I had thought about possibly, it was always in the back of my mind to get into college coaching. When I first got released, I started helping out at my high school just to kind of stay involved while I was sorting out what was going to happen in my career. And I really loved it. Loved the guys, loved helping them. And in that time, right around April, May, Coach Noto called me from Wagner. Their season had just been shut down. Coach Noto was at LIU for 10 years previously. He recruited me to LIU, so that's how I had that relationship. He called me and let me know that both of their GAs are graduating in the spring. They're assistant coaches at Wagner. He knew about my situation. I told him already, and he said, if you want it, I can put in a good word for you and you can jump on it. So with so much uncertainty of the minor league system, I heard that it's probably going to be canceled for the year. That would mean another year until I started playing again. And it'd probably be indie ball unless I got a shot back at affiliated ball. So I just decided to jump on the opportunity to coach and get my master's. And so that's kind of the segue into coaching there. So got released before COVID, but COVID wiping out the minor leagues kind of made the decision a little bit easier to jump into coaching in grad school while the option was still on the table.
I think this question, I was actually going to save this question for last, but based on what you told me, I think I'm going to ask this now. What advice would you give for a high school student athlete, any sport, who thinks they may, have all the talent in the world and think they may go all the way, even if they go to college first and then the pros? How important it is to always have a backup plan just in case something doesn't go wrong. Like, I'm not talking about performance, like anything could happen.
Yeah. So it's funny. I always grew up on one of the quotes. I think it's kind of funny. Me and my dad always say this a lot, but having a plan B takes away from your plan A. Right. So if you have a plan A, like if your dream is to play in the MLB, if your dream is to work on Wall Street, if your dream is to be an ESPN reporter, have like a world famous podcast, right? Like, you're never going to do that unless you believe it's possible and unless you put 100% effort into it. And I always believe having a plan B takes away from that. Now, very successful people who manage their time well, you can pursue multiple plan A's at the same time. So like I tell my guys here at Wagner, if you want to play in the MLB, that's great. And you can do that. Go have a 20-year career. We have guys in the MLB from Wagner now. But that doesn't mean you can't also pursue your plan A of getting a great degree and working on Wall Street when you're done. The best baseball players in the world are done when they're 40, and the average American probably doesn't retire until he's 65. So you look at guys like Derek Jeter and A-Rod, they're in the business world right now. Jeter's a CEO and A-Rod's on Shark Tank. So you can pursue the MLB and get your Wagner degree with a great GPA at the same time. And now you have 2 plan A's at the same time. So I don't like when young guys have a backup plan in the sense it's like, oh, in case this doesn't work out. Like if that's your mindset, it's not going to work out. Like you have, when you pursue a goal, like it's going to work out. If you don't believe that goal, why would anybody else believe it? Like you got to believe it's going to happen, put in the work and make it happen. And check other boxes and make yourself well-rounded. Don't become like so consumed that like every other part of your life crumbles. But don't have a plan B for the sake of, oh, in case this doesn't work out. Just remain well-rounded, do everything you're supposed to do, get good grades, work hard and pursue your dream and it'll happen. And Richard James actually, it's a very simple quote. He's a strength coach at LIU Brooklyn, worked with basketball, but he said to me my sophomore year, and it just stuck, but he just said, the next level is a lot closer than you think. He said that, and I remember it just stuck. Like, if you want to get drafted, it's right there. Like, if you're in high school and you want to play Division I baseball, it's right there. And society likes to tell us these lies, like, oh, it's God-given talent. That guy was God-given, like this, God-given that, or it's impossible to make it here. Like, it's all luck. It's all about who you know. Like, it really is right there. And Richard wasn't lying. It really only took me 1 or 2 good swings in front of one scout to get there. Granted, it took a lot of hard work and years of dedication and late nights at LIU and early mornings, but it is right there. And I always tell my guys here at Wagner, like, achieving your goals and getting to the big leagues, it's not easy, but it's very simple. It requires a lot of hard work, but the path is simple. Work harder than everybody else, more often than everybody else, and you will get there. It's like the compound effect. If I work harder than you today, I got this much better. If I work harder than you again tomorrow, I got this much better. Add that up. It just keeps adding up over time, and eventually you separate yourself. So a lot of people have big goals and they're not willing to put in that work. If you don't put in the work, you'll never get there, but it's very simple. The formula is simple. Work harder than everybody else, more often than everybody else. And it's amazing how much you can accomplish if you really just believe it's possible and put in the work. That's what I tell these kids, like, don't believe the lie that this guy had God-given talent or you can't play Division I. I was not a good high school player until I got older. I was not a good college player until I got older. A lot of people would never believe that I would have played in college or would have played professional baseball. A lot of people did believe I could, and that's why I did. A lot of people in my corner supporting me and telling me I could, but that's really it. Believe it's possible. Attack your plan A as hard as you possibly can, as often as you possibly can, and next level is really a lot closer than people think.
That is some really great advice. I want to talk about, so you're going for your GA now. You're a graduate assistant at Wagner. So after your 2 years are up, where do you see yourself going now in terms of career-wise?
Yeah, it's funny, and it kind of goes back to what we're just talking about now. I really enjoy coaching. I love working with the guys, and helping them as much as I can and learning from them. Love being around baseball, so I'd love to be a college coach. It's a tough industry to break into sometimes and stay into, but it's something I could really see myself doing long term. I really do love it and enjoy it. I'm also pursuing my MBA equally as hard at the same time. Thankfully, I still have over a year until I have to make that decision until I'm done my commitment at Wagner. So really just taking it one day at a time, trying to pursue coaching to the best of my ability and give everything I have to that and give everything I have to building connections with my professors and getting my MBA. So, I have ideas of what I want to do on both sides, and even some other things I've been exploring, but just taking it one day at a time. And I'm confident that, God opens and closes doors and he's going to put you kind of exactly where he wants you. So one day at a time. And this time of year from now, I'm confident that, kind of work itself out and I'll know exactly kind of where I'm supposed to be and in which field.
I want to go back a little bit back to your LIU playing days towards the end of your career. You got to play with Rob Griswold. And, you talked about how you were getting all these junior college guys and ready to win now. And he put up some really good numbers for LIU, both when you were there and after he graduated. And now he actually just he just started with the Long Island Ducks. Talk about what it was like to play behind him and, what type of teammate was he and, where do you see him going with his future?
Yeah. I mean, when you talk about Griswold, like he is the definition of a baseball player. Like he's gritty. He knows the game. The baseball IQ is off the charts. When freshmen come in, I was 2 years ahead of Rob, so I was a junior when he came in. When freshmen come in, they love baseball. They're good at baseball, but they're usually all over the place mentally. Like the game is too fast for them. Their baseball IQ is way behind, and it takes them a long time for the game to slow down, to catch up, to kind of think about the game on the same wavelength as the juniors and the seniors. When Griswold showed up on campus as a freshman, he was probably the smartest guy on our team in terms of baseball. He just understood baseball on a level that very few people I've ever met do. And you could just tell. And it wasn't ever arrogance or anything, but he was just very confident with what to do with the baseball, with where to be on the baseball field. And that confidence brought like a presence that you felt equally as confident in him. So you were very comfortable being on the field with Rob because you knew how confident he was in his decision-making and where to be. You knew the game was slow to him. And it's funny, it's a really interesting piece about Griswold. A lot of people don't realize is he is arguably the main reason why we won the championship in 2018. Obviously, we had a lot of good players, a lot of hard work, different aspects, but Rob in 2017 was a freshman position player and he didn't play a whole lot. He's behind some older guys, definitely good enough to play, but just behind older guys. His sophomore year, we brought in some junior college outfielders who had very good falls and they started and won that job kind of over Rob again. And again, he could have played and he was getting some at bats and stuff, but about halfway through the year, you could tell because Rob's a competitor. He's one of the most competitive people I've ever met. And he wants to win and he wanted to contribute and we were winning and having a good season. He went to the coach's office about halfway through that year and said, I used to pitch in high school. And the coach was like, what? He's like, yeah, like I was a sidearm guy. I threw pretty hard. I have a good arm. And I just want to play and contribute, coach. Like, let me throw a bullpen and just see if I can get on the field somehow to help us win. Like, I want to contribute in some way. So that day, Rob Griswold, we didn't even know this happened. We come down to get ready for practice and we start setting up the field and Griswold's down. Someone's down there on the mound throwing a bullpen into like a net and Coach Carty's down there. And we're like, who the heck's throwing a bullpen down there? Who is that? I've never seen, we don't have a sidearm guy. And we get down there, it's Griswold. And we're like, what is going on? And next thing you know, they're like, he's throwing kind of hard. And we like walk over by the dugout, put the radar gun on him. He's throwing like 87 miles an hour from like submarine. And the ball's just like going this way. Then he throws a slider that's going that way. Everyone was like, oh my gosh. That was about halfway through the year. And I think our very next game, I don't remember where it was. They threw him on the mound, 1, 2, 3 inning. We were like, hold the phone. We got something here. And then the rest is history. He pitched every weekend, multiple times a weekend, and got just shoved and shut everyone down. And he was unhittable that whole year. Pitched 2 of the 3 games in the NEC tournament. Or just unhittable. Throwing a frisbee, the slider, throwing a 2-seam, on the hands. And I'd never seen anything like it. And it was just an unbelievable bridge. We had a very good starting rotation. We had Baylor as kind of long relief out of the pen, and we had Krieger, the all-time saves leader. We didn't have that bridge to get from Baylor to Krieger. If Baylor had to pitch 2 or 3, it's hard as a reliever coming max effort and going the 3rd or the 4th in like the 7th and the 8th inning. So that's what we were missing that whole year. And Griswold came in and was that plug to get us to Krieger. And once he settled in, Baylor to Griswold to Krieger was lights out. And that's why we won the NEC championship. If Griswold never went to the coach's office and never told him he pitched, we don't win that NEC championship, because the NEC championship, we won some pitchers duels. First game of the tournament was pitching. I don't remember if he pitched that game or not, but we used a lot of pitching. And to have Griswold in that tournament where you have to play a lot of games gave us that depth we needed. I know he pitched a championship game. They started to come back a little bit. You bring him in, he shut it right down. Just got the momentum back on our side and shut him right down in the championship game. So he was unbelievable. He won us the championship that year. And then, I graduated, and, the rest is history. He just got better and better. He's got better and better. This year, I coached against him. I was at Wagner, and he was at LIU. He absolutely mowed us down. I talked to the hitters. We had a game plan. I told them what they were going to see. And I think he pitched 3 or 4 innings in one of the games. And it was one of the most dominant performances I've seen in the NEC in a long time. And our guys had good at bats. They were battling, they're good hitters, but he was just that on point. And he was a pro pitcher playing at the college level. And something I actually talked to my dad a lot about Griswold too. And it's very dangerous when the most talented guy on the field is also the smartest guy on the field. It's a very dangerous conversation. It's almost like a Michael Jordan effect. Like Michael Jordan sees the game better than anybody else, and he's also more talented than you. Kobe Bryant. And Griswold was the smartest guy on the field every time he took the field this year, and also the most talented pitcher on the field. So when you can play chess better than other people, and then on top of that, your stuff is just unhittable, it makes for a very, very uncomfortable at bat. And that's why he had a sub-1 ERA for most of this year. I don't know where he finished, but that's why he's playing professional baseball right now. And he's going to have a lot of success with the Ducks. And I'm very confident that he'll get signed with an affiliate at some point if he stays with it. And, as a pitcher nowadays, the sky's the limit. If he keeps getting better and having good off seasons, there's no reason he can't keep moving up the ranks. It's definitely good enough in my book.
Absolutely. We'll end with one more question. As an assistant coach, I know we're in September, classes are starting, but what have you seen from your team now, Coach?
Yeah, we got a really good group of guys. It's going to be a fun year. It's going to be familiar. It's going to be very similar to my junior year at LIU in the sense that we have 20 new players. We graduated a lot of guys. So the theme of this year is getting the guys acclimated with each other and building a team as soon as possible. We have a lot of talent. Coach Noto has been here for 5 years. He's now the head coach. He was the assistant last year. We have 2 new assistant coaches, 20 new players, a new strength coach, and top to bottom, quality people, talented people, passionate people at all those positions. And we start practice on Monday. We started class this week, so you're starting to meet the guys, coming by the office, checking in on class and stuff like that. Thursday and Friday, we're gonna have some team meetings, and Monday we get started with practice. But the big theme of the year is going to just be exactly like that year at LIU, getting all these new players acclimated and building a team. The goal of the fall is always to build the team as close as possible. The first game is not until February. We're training from September to November in the fall. So the main focus is to build a team, obviously player development, but get this team as close as possible and build a team this fall with all these new guys. So I'm really excited. It's something I'm passionate about, that kind of stuff. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun this fall, especially now things are a little bit more back to normal with compared to COVID last year and everything with that. So I'm excited. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Andrew, this was actually my very first episode of this podcast. You really brought out some great content and some really great stuff. Came straight from it. You didn't script it, you just told it how it was. And I think this couldn't have been a better first guest. So Andrew, I appreciate you coming on, and this was fun.
Appreciate that, Brandon. I'm looking forward to watching more episodes, and I'm excited to see it take off.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Best of luck this year.
You got it. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good.